right. Today is March 27th, 2024. It is 9:57 a.m. It is perfectly beautifully sunny outside. No signs of precipitation, no clouds. I am recording with a new setup here. The Zoom H1N portable microphone that I usually record with. I usually always hold it handheld. I now have it mounted on an arm and connected to my computer. So if audio is a bit funny, please forgive me. But this seems to be the new streamlined way of recording to TOs. Uh, and you already read the title, so you know what we'll be talking about today. No discussion of anything else. I want everything else blocked out of my mind, and I just want to talk about this movie. I will give you a spoiler free assessment, and then I'll go into spoilers because I do recommend that everybody try this movie. Um, find it kind of interesting. I was surprised at how split the reviews are, especially among Ghostbuster fans. I figured everybody would go ravenous for this movie, but apparently it didn't work for a lot of people, and I find it so funny that it is. In this new duology of films so far, it has already kind of adopted the Ghostbusters 2 syndrome, where a lot of people consider it the worst movie but more fun, and some people consider it the better movie, but of how split it is. I think that's actually kind of funny. Um, I do like this movie. I think I think you should go see it. I think if you have parents or anybody old in your life that's like, yeah, dude, Ghostbusters is awesome, go bring them to see it. They'll probably enjoy it. Um, and I think you'll have a great time with it. No spoilers, no anything else. The less trailers you see for this movie, the better. Ghostbusters has kind of always had a bad track record, at least in my book, with showing way too much in the trailers. Uh, and I didn't like that. I only saw the first trailer, so I wasn't spoiled too bad. But that's all okay. What's going on outside my house? What is that noise? There's a homeless man hitting my trash cans with a hammer. We're gonna have to deal with it because this is the fifth time that I've started this recording, mostly because I keep getting text messages. Um, Ooh, that's gonna be distracting though. Let's see if we could try to do it. Let's see if we could try to push past a homeless man hitting my trash cans with a hammer. So, now I'm going into full spoilers because everything that I want to talk about this movie involves spoilers. First off, I love how immediately routine it feels. My feelings on Afterlife was that it was a nice, polite movie, but it was on the bottom of my ranking for Ghostbuster films. It was underneath one and two. It was above 2016, but I don't really count that because and not no, it's not because it's like, oh, that never happened. It's because in its own universe, it set itself up for its own completely separate universe than the other movies. So I don't really count it because it's not really in that series or line of movies. Um, but I considered Afterlife the bottom of all the Ghostbusters movies, but I didn't consider it bad. This I probably consider the second best up to the first movie, so it's in second place, and I think it's about as high as of a praise I can give it. Realistically, you can't really surpass the first movie. It's not even anything. It's not that you should be shunned for trying or anything like that. It's like the first movie is the lightning in a bottle. Uh, just absolutely completely by chance, just every perfect ad lib, just every perfect shot, just everything like that is just irreplicable. It's a product of its time. It's a product of the day and time of day that they were filming. It's just a product of everything just happening to go absolutely perfect with a big asterisk on it because things in production didn't go perfect, but that ended up making the movie more perfect. um and this movie, I feel like, I don't know how to put it. I don't know how to put it like this. It feels like the first movie if you took all the magic out of it and you replaced it with a bunch of people trying as hard as they can to pump up the charm of the movie. And it feels like it works. And by that I mean it doesn't feel magical in the sense that it's as perfect as it is because it just happens to be as perfect as it is, like the first movie. It feels like it's as good as it is because everybody was trying their absolute hardest to capture what makes that series appealing, at least to people like me, and I think it works 100% perfectly. And that's why at least personally for me, I give it a 5 star on Letterbox. It's exactly what I was. It's what I would have wanted Afterlife to be. Of course, I understand Afterlife couldn't have been that because Afterlife had to walk so this movie could run. Afterlife had to be a lot slower paced because it's basing itself off of movies that are 30 years old with a bunch of actors that are either too old to act or unfortunately have passed away. And not only do they have to make a story from the ground up, but they have to make it cohesive. They have to introduce these characters who are oblivious to what the Ghostbusters are, very familiar to what the Ghostbusters are, and it had a lot of things to get out of the way in order to set up and let new life breathe into this franchise. I think it did a lot of, I liked a lot of the things it did. I wish it did a lot of the things that it did better. One thing that I think Afterlife did better than this movie. I think Afterlife did exploration of like tech better. I think all the little add-ons and things like that um that Afterlife did where it's like like the ecto goggles have like a Polaroid. Like that's like a neat idea. They don't use it a lot in the story, but it's like a neat looking idea. The PKE meter being a taser that from the perspective of being of like that being an actual job that makes a lot of sense, something to detect and but it also doubles up as something to protect. uh just every the ghost trap being like a little remote control car, like it all makes sense. It's all like really cool and neat. This movie doesn't have, and by the way, I'm already going into spoilers. If you want to go into the movie Oblivious, yes, I do recommend it. I'm just reiterating that so you don't accidentally leave this on and hear spoilers. But this movie doesn't do tech all that crazy, which is funny because they have in this movie they have a whole new research facility, so assumedly their tech should be wildly better, but in reality there's not that much innovation about the newest. There's only really two new pieces of tech that I can think of off the top of my head. One is in addition to the little remote control car ghost trap, they also have a drone ghost trap. I guess that's kind of cool. I don't really see a lot of the only scenario where I see it being useful is the one that they used it in, which is this giant ghost that's flying through this sewer ghost that's flying through New York City. It's kind of like spaghettiing itself around like buildings and such, and they can't get all the way up that high, so they use the drone ghost trap, and that's kind of cool. Um, I suppose. No, I mean it's a fine little concept. I like it all right. I also like that they tie in the ecto goggles with the remote control ghost traps. I think it gives them another good little use because they really don't have. They look cool, but they don't really have that much of a use. And having them on you kind of really doesn't make any sense. What's the purpose of ecto goggles? Like, you use a PKE meter to tell you where the ghost is at or how hot or cold, how close you're getting to the ghost. And I guess the ecto goggles kind of do the exact same thing. I mean, in the first movie, Ray just uses them to look at Slimer, and then that's it. That's really it. He doesn't even wear them the rest of the movie. It has a good use in the video games. In the video games, it shows you a trail of where the ghost has been. Uh, but but you can't pull out the ecto goggles without pulling out the PKE meter. My point is that it's a cool looking piece of tech that doesn't really have a purpose, and making it tying it into these remote control traps is actually a really good idea because other than that it doesn't actually have like there isn't like if you're thinking about it logically, just like throw them out. They're just like big and bulky and they're on your head and they don't really they look cool but like not really. um and I like that they did that there. The other piece of tech that I noticed in this movie, and please correct me if I'm missing one, but the only other piece of tech that I can remember is they have like this ghost thrower pistol, which it just looks like the neutrino one from like their packs, but it's mounted to your arm and it has like a giant like safety handle, and you kind of hold it out and you shoot like I don't know, like I guess you could shoot. It's cool looking. I think it's really neat. only two characters use it in the movie, Lucky and Janine Melnitz. And Lucky uses it in one scene just to show you what it can do, and then Janine Melnitz puts it on, and I don't I actually think she ever uses it. Um, because like the Melnitz in uniform thing from the trailer. Uh, so that's cool, I guess. It's pretty neat. It's another one of those things where I feel like they'll set it up in this movie and they'll probably have more use for it later. It's just like another thing of like we'll put it in here in case we ever need it later because it'll be a lot cooler to use later. At least that's how I felt about it. Turn off that light. So I think it does tech well. I mean everything else kind of just gets like a quote unquote upgrade. It's the like the proton pack. It's not really that upgraded. I think well, they added like a yellow bumper. I guess they had like a bunch of yellow stuff to signal that it's like very hazardous. They made a lot of the parts smaller so that the pack is more uniformly like boxy, which I actually think is pretty smart. Uh, like there's not as many like metal rods and like things that could easily break off if you like rub it up against a wall that are sticking out. It's a lot more uniform. Uh, and I can't remember. I've seen this movie twice, but I saw it twice in the same day. So I can't remember exactly, but I think they changed the way the proton beams look. Like in the first two movies, they were cell painted and they were wiggly orange. They were heavily wiggly orange noodles with like little bright blue lightning bolts around them, which is a really cool look. In Afterlife, they're also that, but they look more electricity-y and fiery. In this movie, they look about the same as that, but when they upgrade their packs, I swear to God, it's just like a regular like orange, like fiery beam. And fiery is actually important for the the plot, which I'm sorry, I'm just getting into all the outsider aspects of it. I'm just getting into all the things that I appreciate that have nothing to do with the story because I already think the story is fantastic and I feel like I would have less to say about that. Um, so maybe let me just try to quick fire these things off. I like the red stripes on the hood of the Ecto. I mean, it's not really that crazy or revolutionary, but it helps separate this car from all the other cars. I like that each movie has its own distinct look for the car. This one a bit more uniform, but it is kind of closer. It's pretty close to perfection. I do miss Ghostbusters too. How it just had a comical amount of things on the top of the car, like more giant gasoline propane tanks and like an LED like board on the side of the car saying we're back and I'm in love with that car and this car is pretty cool too. It's a lot more cleaner though. I miss the blue pipes. The silver pipes don't break it up as much. I wish the blue pipes were back, but that's a nitpick and you barely even see it. Uh, let me let me think because I think that's it. I mean, the only other thing they could really talk about is the red jackets because it's like really the only other new thing. But to every Ghostbuster fans, to all the Ghostbuster fans, at least the ones that purchased the jackets, uh, God, I can't believe like those jackets were in those trailers, at least in the teaser trailer for maybe 20 seconds, less, not even 20 seconds, literally like 5 or 10, and the site that officially sold them sold Ghostbuster themed ones because the fans really wanted them bad for like $1,200, or no, maybe it was the original one for $1,200 and there was another site that sold some for $300. The point was these jackets weren't cheap and people bought them in preparation for the movie because the trailers made it seem like everybody was wearing the jackets and half of the movie was going to be just completely freezing and everybody was going to have to survive. And in this movie, two or three people wear the jackets and they wear it for maybe 2 minutes. It's really not like in there like at all. It's a cool looking thing and wearing it as cosplay is still probably really fun. But I'm sure a lot of people were disappointed when they saw that shot in the trailer where everybody was wearing a jacket. And in this movie, I think maybe Trevor puts it on. No, Trevor doesn't put it on. I don't know. I don't think anybody puts on a jacket in the four main crew. I think it's just Lucky, and then it's the guy with the blonde hair, who's like the head of research. I can't remember his name. Did my computer just turn off? This is very very bad. Oh no, it's fine. My mistake. So computer turned off. I thought it stopped recording. But that's okay. That's just it. That's just it telling me to shut up and actually talk about the movie. So, which I'm actually really excited to because I really, really, really enjoy the movie. The movie's plot, that is, I think is very creative. It opens up with a flashback to set up the villain, which on first watch through didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I mean, it made enough sense, but on the second watch through, I appreciate the intro even more. People pointed out that the intro takes place in 1904, and in 1904, the Hook and Ladder 8 firehouse wasn't just one firehouse, it was two firehouses that looked exactly the same that were stuck right next to each other, and then somewhere in the 50s or something similar to that, it got split in half. And that would have been cool to see, but it's okay, it's whatever. It's a movie about a cold ghost. Nobody, it's not gonna rustle any feathers. Um, and it starts out with these early 20th century firemen going to put out this fire. I don't really know how to put it. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know why, because they're firemen. So obviously they got to call about a fire, but then they go to a building that isn't on fire, and then instead just has a cold room filled with frozen dead people, and which really awesome, just awesome shot, just like his hand getting stuck to the door, frozen to the door. They rip it open. There's like a guy who's in the middle of being scared, but he's like frozen to death, and you could see that his hand is like stuck on like a gramophone like crank. It's like really, it's really good, like classic kind of horror-y vibes without being scary. I really, really like how it's done. And I think it's a fantastic intro, and I think the intro of the Ghostbusters in the movie is even better. They're in the middle of a job. I noticed that this new series of movies is probably going to do away with the intro of the classic Ghostbusters, which I'm completely fine with. I'm glad that it's doing something new and it's creating its own voice for itself. It's letting you know that, hey, these are Ghostbuster movies, but they're their own set of movies. Because the original movies, as you would know, they would open up with the quote unquote the big scare, and then it would fade in with the Ghostbusters logo and the theme. And it did that for the first two movies, and then Afterlife didn't do that, which made sense because it was more somber. But this movie didn't do that, and I'm glad that it didn't, because now it's cementing itself of having its own voice. And I also appreciate how this series of movies lets the Ray Parker Jr. theme just sit back for a little bit, because that theme really has been done to death. There's part of me that was hoping that they weren't going to do that theme, and they were going to do like the DMC cover of Ghostbusters, or maybe just like another Bobby Brown song, or just something to just like mix it up, because you have so many Ghostbuster themes under your belt that you have the ability to use, but you keep using the same one. I get why, because it's popular. Um, and but I'm glad that they let it breathe. They play that song, I think, literally once in the movie. In both of those movies, they play the songs literally once, and it's at the very end to signal that the movie's over. Which I'm all for. Not saying let the theme die, but good God, stop playing it every 5 seconds. Because this movie has a lot of inspiration from the real Ghostbusters. But I'm glad one thing it doesn't do is constantly replay the theme over and over again. Have you ever tried to watch a sit down and actually watch an episode of the real Ghostbusters? They play the theme like every 30 seconds, and they'll start it right from the beginning, and then they'll play the instrumental in its entirety, and it gets a little fatiguing. It gets pretty fatiguing. And so I'm glad that they opt for the much calmer, the much more repeatable, and the much less fatiguing theme of it's very confusing. They have the Ghostbusters theme by Ray Parker Jr. It's the one that everybody knows, the dun, 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 dun. It's that one. But on the Ghostbusters soundtrack, they also have just Ghostbusters theme, which is by Elmer Bernstein. It's dun, 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 dun. It's the one that plays whenever they're in the firehouse. It's a very blue collar kind of it's a beautiful mix. It's a piano and like waltzing tuba kind of theme with like a very subtle theremin built in to the song, to feel very blue collary, but also remind you that it's a little eerie, without being too serious about it. And it's a fantastic theme, and I'm so glad that these movies use them to the max, because they're so much nicer on the ears. They're so much better for character dialogue to shine through it, and it's overall just a better experience when you overplay that theme, because you're barely even noticing it when you overplay that theme. I also appreciate how much orchestral. I also appreciate how much this movie leans into orchestral cues and music. Uh, it feels very Ghostbusters one-y. I'm glad that they're not playing pop songs every 20 minutes. Uh, I'm glad that these movies are conservative with music. It adds to the feeling. Um, People didn't like that this was like a family movie. They didn't like that the Ghostbusters are like a family now. I don't know if they just wanted it to be just like four blue collar guys just kind of shooting the shit while they go bust ghosts. But I wasn't too on board with the idea of, excuse me. Let me just I'm gonna have to figure this. I gotta get a wireless mouse because I keep having to wiggle this mouse to make sure the computer doesn't turn off. I need to get one of those Bluetooth Logitech keyboards that have the trackpad built in because I'm recording on a bench like 5 or 10 feet away from my computer, and if I had like a little remote control for it, that would be fantastic. Because I have it hooked up to a TV. This is how I watch movies now. Please be sure to stay tuned for my media center renovation video, which will be coming out soon. Where it's just me having the absolute worst time reorganizing wires for about 2 hours, and I almost broke my toe. Uh, Anyways, back to the movie. Oh shit! What was I saying? Oh no, I'm gonna lose it. I'm gonna lose it. What was I gonna say? Right. Okay. Gotta get back on topic. I have a bad. See, I'm doing it right now. I have a bad problem with getting off topic. Back to the topic of discussion, which is Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire. People didn't like, or people weren't very comfortable with the idea of this being a very family oriented movie, and I was kind of iffy on it. But this movie put me completely on board. I don't know how much of it is actually because people wanting it to be four guys shooting the shit and busting ghosts, and or how much of it is cosplayers living their in-head fantasy of, well, I'm a ghostbuster because this is a 9 to 5 job and I'm a ghostbuster. But if it's a family, that fantasy makes it harder to fulfill. But I do know this. I was watching one of the Adam Savage behind the scenes videos. I try to tread on them very carefully because I want to see too many spoilery things for the movie. But my favorite things for movies are behind the scenes, and when they come out before the movie that I'm heavily anticipating for, I'm gonna watch the hell out of them. And I was watching the one where him and Jason Reitman were walking around the sound stage set of the Hook and Ladder 8 Firehouse, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. I'm so glad that even though Marvel is doing everything as simple as shooting interiors on green screens. I'm glad that there's still people out there pushing for as many practical effects, as many real sets as you can make, like everything. I'm so glad because you could really feel it in the movie how grounded everything feels. And when they were talking in that interview, they mentioned Jason Reitman passively mentioned how it's kind of like the Royal Tenenbaums. How just it's like all these people living in a house that they're really not meant to be living in. Absolute best thing almost in the entire movie, absolute best thing is when they come home from the first job. By the way, that shot of it, like it zooming out on the ecto, and then like the drone kind of swirling down and crashing down, and it just playing like that blue collar theme. Best visual. I love that visual. I love how after all that excitement and everything, it really is just like another day in New York, and I love it. It's absolutely fantastic. Uh, and after that absolute best thing, just like thing in the entire film, at least for me, is them coming home. Like Gary Gruberson, he's like cooking on like this table that like one day 30 years ago was used for like experiments with like slime and stuff like that, and he's just cooking like dinner on a table, and like Callie Spangler. She's just walking down the stairs with like a giant like laundry basket, and like this whole place that's supposed to be for work is just like it's just like laundry baskets everywhere and like bags of Cheetos and like washer and dryers. It's just like it's like an actual like it's a real firehouse that's really in like it's like being used, but it's been so well lived in by a developing family continuously. And I just love that. I just love that there's just like a washer and a dryer like next to the containment unit. I like that like all these offices have been like remade into like bedrooms because it's just like at this point it's just like a house for them. And I don't know. I don't know. I just love seeing like it's just so funny to me to see like it's like if a family bought like an industrial factory and it's like the mom and the dad slept in like in like the loom in like the loom churning room, and like the kid and brother like slept in like in like the attic in the basement. It's just like so bizarre, but it's like with one of my favorite properties. So it's just so it makes me so happy to see something interesting being done with it that is very sincere. And that's one of the reasons why I like this movie. And I think, and the more that I'm saying it, I think all the reasons that I like this movie are the reasons that people don't like this movie. Um, which is that they're trying so many drastically new things that don't really feel that comfortable, that instantly make me think like I'm so glad that this is where everything is at now. I'm just so glad that like this is what's being done with things. Um, I like that Raise a Cult is still up. I noticed that they're really pushing for the branding of Raise a Cult in universe to they're really pushing for it. They really want everybody to know what Raise a Cult is, which is so funny because it was just like a one-off gag in the second movie. Um, which I'm not sure if I have to say it, but yes, this movie does acknowledge the second movie's existence. I thought we were all very aware of that with Afterlife, just because there was a toaster in the movie. I don't know. It wouldn't make sense for them to make a Ghostbusters sequel and just ignore the sequel that came out like 4 years after the first one. At least to me, didn't make any sense. It was just so complicated because this movie some people don't like Ghostbusters 2, but that's really like the only place you could take the franchise is making more movies like Ghostbusters 2. Just another villain of the week, just another, just all the same elements but just like rearranged. It's really the only thing that you could do with the franchise. And honestly, that's really what I'm interested in, just making hour and a half, hour and 45, hour 55 minute long episodes of the real Ghostbusters, but they're more fleshed out. Um Oh, you know what? I didn't. I was so distracted talking about everything that I like about the movie that I didn't even address the thing that's making everybody lose their mind right now, which is Phoebe's ghost friend. This has stirred up some controversy, which I'm surprised with. Um, there's a scene in the movie where, well, the conflict for Phoebe in the movie, which is Egon's granddaughter, the one that looks exactly like Egon, that's supposed to take his place, thematically, is that she's 15 years old in this movie and she legally cannot work that dangerous of a job. So even though she's the most passionate Ghostbuster out of all of them, next to Gary Gruberson, who's the only other actual scientist on the team, is that she can't do the thing that she loves, which is this. So they drive and they peel off without her to go do a job, and she's kind of left to her own devices, and she just takes her shit and she goes into the middle of the park to play chess with herself. At first, I didn't understand what was happening. But then upon rewatching the movie, she sets up the chess and then she makes the first move and she's about to make the move for the other side. I didn't know that people played chess with themselves, but I guess that's what smart people would do. Um, and there's one of the chess pieces starts moving on their own, and she gets excited because you can it almost seems like Egon's ghost is about to come back and like console her. And I was kind of like I was kind of like pushing myself back in my chair. I was like, hey, this movie's starting off so good, please don't show Egon's ghost again, because that was the most iffy part of the last movie. And if you did it again and you made that a plot, I was so scared if Egon's ghost was going to show up. I was even more scared if they were going to try to make him talk. I was like, please no, we're doing so well, we're actually doing so well, please, like that's already been done, let's please just leave it behind. And I was very relieved to see that it wasn't Egon, but it was just like a regular regular girl ghost. But then I immediately got confused. um it wasn't even that she looked bad. It's just that it's so out of place to see just a regular human ghost in Ghostbusters. You usually never see them because which by the way, I guess it's also a good time to mention that this movie actually finally kind of addresses like what's the deal with like ghosts in this movie, because a ghost in the first Ghostbusters kind of could be anything. It could just be like a person, like the gray lady from the library, which is she's actually pink, so I don't know what's up with that. But the pink librarian ghost is like the only human ghost in Ghostbusters you kind of see, and I'm not counting the Ray getting his dick sucked scene because it happens for like 5 seconds, and it's a dream. But you don't really ever see like you see that, which is like a human ghost. It's like our understanding of a ghost, but then you see something like Slimer, and he's not really like anything. He's not really like a person. He doesn't even look like a creature. He's just kind of like a green. He's kind of like I guess like a green, like weird, hairy, like booger, and that's weird. But then you also see things like weird looking, like demonic, like dragons. But then you also see things that are physical, like a zombie driving a taxi, or like a terror dog, and it kind of all doesn't really make any sense. And you kind of just have to lump in that ghosts can be anything. They're just kind of like they're not even like sometimes they're physical, sometimes they're not. If they just don't immediately look human, or if they do look human but they're like transparent and glowy, then it's a ghost. And that's kind of the logic that you had to go off of for the first two movies. Um, in this movie, they kind of address it a little bit more. There's like human ghosts that attach themselves to objects. They call like they if like any object they say in this movie that if any object has been like through a traumatic experience with like an owner, a ghost can attach itself to it, kind of like a ghost trap. And those ghosts, they don't really look like anything. They just it's like a slightly haunted object, and the ghost kind of just looks like a weird like white gas that doesn't really look like anything. There's human ghosts that can also attach themselves to objects, but they look more like humans. It's not really like the spirit of anything. It's like an actual human, uh, which which is kind of what the gray lady is. She's like a lady who holds a book, and that's kind of what Phoebe's ghost friend is. Is this like a ghost that her thing is like a box of matches. She holds like a box of matches, and she keeps lighting the same match that like burned down her house, and then there's only one match left or something like that. Then there's any ghost that kind of looks like a scary monster, but it's still transparent. It's like an interdimensional being um that comes from like another dimension or something like that. Just like another like ghostly kind of minion or something like that. And then the third one they kind of don't explain either. Like there's this ghost in the movie called Pukey, and it's like a tiny green blob that just like walks and rolls around, and it just kind of throws up on you. And they don't really say what it is because it's not like a ghost. You can't look at it and call it a ghost because it's like a little hard, meaty, like a little like it's a creature, like it's a little tiny creature. It's not like a goblin. I don't know if you would call it a ghoul. I don't know what it is. And, maybe this movie doesn't really explain it that much, but they do address that any ghost that doesn't look like it isn't like a dead person. It's like an interdimensional being, but it still doesn't tell you what the hell the little I just don't know. Does that mean that Pukey's a minion? He's kind of like a Zool terror dog equivalent, but for like another god. Is there like another Pukey that has to make out with that Pukey to open a gate for another evil god? That would be weird. Um, but I guess this is all in good fun. I'm just trying to figure it out because it feels like we're building so much good framework for all these movies. I feel like another interesting thing to address would be like, what's the deal with all these ghosts? Some of them are creatures and they're not even ghosts. Some of them are kind of ghostly. Some of them are actual human ghosts. That would be interesting to explore. Anywho, these people did not like Phoebe's ghost friend in this movie. I didn't mind it. I thought the acting dialogue was about the only way that they could do it. Uh, I'm glad that they gave Phoebe something to do in this movie. I'm glad that they experimented with this interesting idea that they had and tried to actually flesh it out. I mean, that on paper that is a pretty cool concept. Like, what if a Ghostbuster what if a Ghostbuster becomes friends with a ghost, or what would it be like to become friends with a ghost? I think that's pretty interesting. I'm glad that they tried that out. Um, I'm just 1 second. Let me wiggle this mouse again. I gotta figure out how to. So, people really did not like Phoebe's like ghost friend in this movie whatsoever, and I could definitely understand why. It definitely feels maybe a little bit too out of pocket, just kind of out of nowhere. again, I'm just glad that they did something new and they actually tried to flesh it out and do something with it. Um, People did say that they got like lesbian vibes from the Ghost, which I think is kind of weird. I mean, I understand where they're coming from. I personally just saw it as Phoebe's already a really awkward character, and she's 15 years old, and she's never had a friend. She doesn't really know how to interact with any other people other than her family, and any friends that she has are people who became friends with her and not vice versa. Like she didn't like she barely talked to podcast, you know. Podcast did all the talking. That's really like her only other friend. Which I like that podcast is in this movie. I wish he was in it more. I love how enthusiastic he is. I think it's a really genius um maybe not genius. It's a really good smart idea to have podcast pretend that he's at summer camp, but really he's just interning for Ray. And I like I like their whole social media page that they run together. I love that whole dynamic. Hey, you know what I didn't mention? Um, because this is really the thing I care about the movie. I love how much presence Ray and Winston have in the movie. Winston a little bit less so because even within the movie's logic, he's like he's a lot busier. He's like a businessman. He shows them around like the research facility and everything cool like that. But I love how much presence Ray gets because it feels like in real life he also wanted to be more part of this series, but also within the logic of the movie, his character would want to be so relentlessly a part of this series. There's a part in the movie that's really beautiful. Is that a little overstating to say that it's a little beautiful? But I really do love it. It's a moment where Ray is in his shop, and it's just Ecto One is driving by his shop, and he just kind of looks at it and he smiles, because he's so like happy to see this thing that he loves is still going, but the smile also it contains sadness because he's like too old. He's straight up he's like an old fart and he's too old and fat to like do anything. And that's kind of where like there's a part in the movie where him, Phoebe, and Podcast, they get on like his little Ecto C bike that he is like locked up in a shop somewhere, and they go to like the library to help progress the plot a little bit. They end up making everything worse, and but it's like a really like fun, exciting scene. Uh, and it has a lot of great jokes, a lot of great action. By the way, the possessor ghost in this movie, the little red blob that keeps just like possessing objects, such a fantastic. I love that so much. I also love that you never get to see what the ghost actually looks like. You can see him zip from object to object. Um, Love that mystery. And in this movie, they have that whole scene where they're like chasing the possessor ghost through the library, and the kids obviously get in jail because with every Ghostbuster scene, there needs to be a scene where they're stuck in jail for some reason. That's one thing that's never stopped, is they always have to use the theme song. They always have to get stuck in jail at some point, and it always feels like they need to. It always feels like they always end up trying to cross the streams, thinking that'll work, even though it's really dangerous. Um, but they all get arrested, and Winston pulls off Rates to the side because he was the only adult accompanying them, and he's like pissed off, obviously, because like this company is now his. It's Winston's. He owns it, and it's terrible PR that a member of the Ghostbusters just destroyed a giant stone lion statue in front of the library museum or whatever it is, the library, I guess. And they're just like yelling at they're like yelling and screaming at each other, and then Winston's just like, we're too fucking old for this. And I was like, thank you for saying that, because as much as I want these original actors to still be in these movies, I think they should also acknowledge that they're actually too old for this, and it doesn't make any sense. And he says like, yeah, we're too old for this, we gotta stop, these are our golden years, we shouldn't be anywhere near this. And then Ray can't help himself, he's like, this is the only thing that I want to do. This is the only thing that makes me happy, and I love that whole thing. That doesn't have that much impact to the story because they kind of just turn around and just go right back to what they're doing. There, I guess this is a good time to talk about it as any. Kamal Nanjiani, he's in this movie. I heard that he was in this movie. I didn't know what that was gonna mean. I don't know him from anything. I know of him. the very first time that I saw him, kind of ashamed to say, very first time I saw him was when people were making fun of him for getting really ripped and buff for that Eternals movie. Um, Kind of a weird thing, isn't it? I mean, kind of a really weird thing, isn't it, that he got buff for a movie and everybody started making fun of him. It's kind of bizarre. Um, I actually mainly know Kamal Nanjiani from Harmontown. I don't know if you guys have ever listened to the Harmontown podcast, but I personally know him from Harmontown. Their True Detective skits, the funniest thing on the planet. And I heard he was going to be in this movie, and I was like, I wonder what they're going to do with him. And I was worried that they were going to like just try to bring in a whole new cast of like grown up Ghostbusters and kind of like sideline the kids. It's not that like it's not even like that. Like I want the kids to be a part of everything. It's that you already set up the kids. It would be really stupid to just set them to the side to do more grown up stuff. And just like because there's a whole story there that you can explore. There's like a whole line of characters. Some people thought that's what they were gonna do. I was kind of worried that that's what they were gonna do. Instead, they do a much more interesting thing with him. He's like, so the story of Garaka is that he's Garaka being the ice god that they have to fight in the movie, which I'm looking at it now. I think I've been talking for 40 minutes about this movie and I haven't mentioned him once, which is so funny to me because there's so much for me in this movie personally to chew on. That's why I love this movie so much. And the ice god called Garaka. He's a big angry guy, and he controls ice and he froze everybody. And he's like, I want to kill everybody and take their ghosts and make my ghost army and take over the world because that's your motivation. Obviously, is just like wanting to take over the world as a god, as an evil, angry god, and that was a really, really, really long time ago. I can't remember with which mythology it stems from, but he ends up getting defeated by these four like knights called the Fire Masters, and they kind of like firebend fire into him. They rip off his horns, which is the source of his power, and they trap him in this orb that they carry around for the whole movie. Which I would call it a MacGuffin, but nobody's really like trying to go after it. It's just kind of like in one place at one time. And Kamal Nanjiani's character is a descendant of a fire god. That's why he had the orb, and that's why he pawned it off to Rey. And that's how it opened up and released that evil demon. But he's also the last like fire god remaining, so he can use his fingers to like take the light from like a lighter and like put like light a candle with it. Kind of neat. I kind of like that, and I really like how they pull him in the story because he's very funny. He's not overbearing. He does what he needs to do in the movie. It's very satisfying, and his presence is perfectly where it's at. Love his character. I love that this sort of pseudo magical being that they're bringing into it without making it too ridiculous. I like that a lot, and I thought he was one of the best parts of this movie. Uh, and I also wonder what they're gonna do with him after this movie. I mean, it could be so easy to just like wave him off as what is it? Wave him off as just like he was a guy who was in this movie. He's not going to be in the next one because he's just like another character like within New York City. um but I wonder if they're going to try to make him a part of the crew, which is actually it's another complaint that people had is at the end of the movie that there was like I remember there's not actually this many, but I remember hearing somebody complain like there's like 27 Ghostbusters at the end of this movie who's actually a Ghostbuster, and I understand that. It definitely feels like more of an epic gathering to this one than it was to Afterlife, uh, but also feels more deserved because everybody who shows up in the end actually has a presence somewhere beforehand in the movie. I didn't hate it, but I wasn't too thrilled that at the end of Afterlife, all the Ghostbusters come back, but you haven't seen Bill Murray or Ernie Hudson for the entire movie. You can see them right there because they're like, we're back. We also have our suits and our packs, even though those were both taken away. I keep saying that the simplest thing that you could have done to fix that scene at all was leave Ernie Hudson in a suit, leave Ray in his little t-shirt and cargo shorts and suspenders, and then put Bill Murray in a Hawaiian t-shirt, and just have them like have it be so obvious that they showed up like last minute, you know. Uh, that would have almost fix that entire scene for me. But I understand why they put them in uniform. Actually, no, I don't. I don't understand why they put them in uniform. I'm not gonna pretend like I do. But I think the whole coming together part end of this movie was a lot more, excuse me, a lot more appropriately done than the last movie. I really do feel like Frozen Empire did everything that Afterlife did. Excuse me. It did everything that Afterlife did, but it did it better and it fleshed out everything more, which is funny because this movie is actually technically shorter than Afterlife. Um, and I feel like it did everything better. I don't think the other movie was bad, but that movie definitely did walk so that this one can run. And I'm curious as to who's going to direct the next one because it does look like they're going to be making another one. It's doing well financially enough for them to warrant making another one, maybe with not as high of a budget, but definitely another one probably. If not, that's okay because honestly, the ending to this movie was so unbelievably satisfying that even if they never did make another one, which I doubt that they would not make another one, but even if they never did make another one, I think this is perfectly sufficient. It has much more of a satisfying end, at least to me, than Afterlife. Um, and I love this movie tenfold more. It's easily number two. It easily overtakes Afterlife. It easily overtakes Ghostbusters 2, and it doesn't overtake one. But I will say that I will probably be rewatching it a lot more than one because I've already rewatched one to death. The only reason I love that movie so much is probably because I've seen it about 1,000 times as a kid. I'd leave it on in the background while I'd be like doing like arts and crafts and stuff, and I've rewatched it to absolute death. I could tell you the rhythm and every syllable of every single quote from that movie. And I am so enthusiastically happy because I don't really watch Ghostbusters 2 that much. I actually like to sit down and observe it like I'm actually watching a movie. This one though, I'm so excited to get my hands on it for home physical media and actually sit down and watch it. And I could not recommend it enough. Please go into it with an open mind and please just appreciate everything that this movie is trying to serve to you hot and fresh and new because it has so much so much to offer to people who are ready to just give it a chance. Um, Interesting stuff around the movie that isn't the movie. I don't know how many points I've missed while talking about the movie, but I do feel like I've exhausted every point that I wanted to exhaust. A couple interesting things about the movie. Um, Said it was going to come out March 22nd. That's a Friday. Actually came out March 21st. That's a Thursday. At least where I'm at. And I watched it Thursday twice. I actually watched the earliest showing that I possibly could. So I saw the movie pretty much the second that it was available, 2 p.m. on a Thursday. That's when my local movie theater opens up, and that's exactly when I went to go see it. So I saw the literal second that it came out. The literal second. I got the AMC Ghost Trap popcorn bucket. Got to do a review on that. That's such a fantastic. They did the Ecto One popcorn bucket for Afterlife. This one is tenfold better. And they're both amazing, but this one's tenfold better. It's so fantastic. I can't wait to do like a movie memorabilia collection tour because I have so much to show off and so much to praise. And I saw it basically the second it came out. Uh, Anyways, the next day was the opening day, which was March 22nd. Excuse me. Let me wiggle this mouse again because it's. Oh my god, it's doing so much crazy, funky stuff. I think I broke it. I broke my computer! I gotta do reviews more often. I can't seem to make a episode of Titio last more than 20 minutes. This has easily been an hour, and I still have so much to say. Mike has cut it short because I actually want to get to doing things today. Um, but one thing, back to the original topic. One thing that I found interesting was that it opened up the 22nd of March, which is a Friday, and that day they announced a physical media release, which it was imminent, right? You know, Sony Home Pictures and Entertainment, they were the inventor of the Blu-ray and everything like that. Of course, they're gonna put all their movies on physical. How could you not? Especially when it's so utterly confusing as to where all the Ghostbusters reside on streaming. And by confusing, I mean I didn't bother looking, and I don't immediately know off the top of my head, so it's confusing to me. But they immediately announced 4K Blu-ray, DVD, and Steelbook, and even a gift collector set all on the same day, which is crazy to me. It's all available for pre-order, but I'm not pre-ordering it because one, last time I pre-ordered any Blu-ray box set was the Masaki Yuasa 5 film box set, and I pre-ordered it for $70. And the second that it went live, it just immediately got cheaper. So I'm just not gonna make that mistake again. Also, these don't have a release date as to when they're actually gonna come out. I can't wait for them to come out though. I'm so excited to watch them. And also, this movie has so much in the trailers that wasn't in the movie, and Gil Keenan, the director, uh, said that he cut so much out of the movie, which actually makes me so happy. Not that these didn't make it in the movie, but that it for while they were making it, they were like, "Hey, these scenes are really cool, but they don't benefit the story, so we're gonna move them to the side somewhere else." Which makes me so happy that they were willing to make sacrifices over fan service, because most of the things that they cut out, I thought was fan service, or I didn't think of it as fan service, but it appeared to be fan service. I still can't wait to see it though, to see all the deleted scenes, more of the making of. Just to rewatch the movie again. I'm not sure which version I'm gonna get. Probably the 4K one. I already have all the Ghostbusters on 4K. Which, by the way, if you don't have uh, DVD, Blu-ray, a bunch of uh, what is it, foddering between the two, as to which is actually not which is better quality, but which is like fine and which one you need. Ghostbusters on DVD is fun, but Ghostbusters on Blu-ray is like some serious business. Like the special effects shine even harder when you watch it on Blu-ray. It's so wild. um and I'm excited to see this on 4K UHD. I might get the Steelbook, but I'm afraid if I get the Steelbook, I'll compulsively convince myself to get the Steelbooks for the other movies, and I don't want to do that because I have a really bad compulsive like buying disorder. I have a problem with online shopping, and well, I mean, not anymore. I've gotten a lot better with it, but I'm just afraid that I'm just like, well, I gotta have all those steelbooks now, because I don't like collecting steelbooks. Just because like when they get dented, I get so needlessly mad about it. I'm like, why the fuck did they dent this piece of metal that went through, uh, hours and hours and days of shipping and tumbling around in warehouses? Like I'm entitled to a product that could actually like the movie's there. Like I don't need the metal casing, no matter how cool it looks, but it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. uh, but love this movie. Couldn't recommend it enough. If you haven't seen it, please go see it. If you're thinking about watching it again to see how much you like it better, watching it a second time does add a lot of fun to the movie, and I do recommend seeing it twice if you're on the fence about it. Um, couldn't say what's next for this channel in particular. I have a lot of ideas. Some Ghostbusters related, some not. But I'm confident in saying that you can expect more, and Ghostbusters will probably be on the menu. So thanks for watching. I'll see you then.